Hi everybody, happy Sunday. We just finished up 4 months of traveling around Southeast Asia. We had some fears and we've also got some tips and just a little story about how our experience went in Southeast Asia. Stay tuned. Hi there, we're Chris and Steve from Eat, Walk, Learn. We're an early retired couple who left our corporate America jobs in May of 2021. We sold everything, including our home in Denver, Colorado, and all the things in it, plus our cars, just so that we could travel the world full time. Everything that was left we put into our 2 carry-on suitcases so we can travel lightly around the world. Would you please take a moment to subscribe and like? We share our tips from our nomad life, take repositioned cruises to get from continent to continent, and we enjoy gorgeous hikes in beautiful places around the world. We also try to eat vegan as often as we can. We hope you'll enjoy reading one of our latest books, including 50 Hikes in 50 States, or our bestseller, 2 Carry-Ons and a Plan. You can pick them up on Amazon next time you're there. Please follow us on social so you can join us every Sunday at 5 p.m. Eastern. Thank you so much for sharing our adventure with us. Where are we?
We are in Osaka, Japan. The weather is beautiful. And we've been in Southeast Asia for 4 months and it got out of winter, right? So we had some beautiful hot weather there in Southeast Asia. And Chris just mentioned that, we had maybe some fears and maybe some insecurities in going to Southeast Asia. We really didn't know what to expect.
It was so outside of our comfort zone.
Yeah. And I mean, the language,
food, the money, transportation, everything.
security, safety. So, why don't you tell us a little bit more about some of the things that you might have been afraid of?
So I think, well, first of all, we're going to try something a little bit different in this video and have just kind of a little conversation with you, a little storytelling. So let us know if you like this style. Give us a thumbs up and subscribe and comment in the comments below. Do you like this kind of more chattier, less encyclopedic, list-oriented style? Or do you want us to go back to the kind of 1, 2, 3 style that we've been doing? So we have been all over Western Europe, some of Eastern Europe, all over Mexico, some of Central America and South America. And I think as Americans, we kind of have a comfort zone with those places because they're neighborly because they're just south of us in the US, or they're kind of familiar being Western Europe, and some of the languages we also might have done in high school or whatever. So we have a language familiarity too. So when Steve and I were talking about going to Southeast Asia, he's like, I don't know. It's a little outside of my comfort zone. I don't know how to speak the language. Everybody looks different. Everybody sounds different. The food is different. Everything is completely different. And so we discovered that so we went to Malaysia, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam. And then we also went to Taiwan, which may or may not be Southeast Asia, probably not, but we're going to throw that in occasionally as we're talking here. And just share with you some of the tips and tricks that we learned as we overcame some of our fears while we were traveling Southeast Asia. And starting off with the language. Tell us about what your fear was you weren't going to be able to communicate or read.
Right. And, we spent our first 2 months in Malaysia and had no problem at all. People speak English very well there. They understood us. We understood them very well. There might have been a little bit of, some issues with some people, but very easy to communicate with people. And I really was not expecting that. And it was also pretty easy because they use the Latin, letters as opposed to Thailand, which doesn't. So Malaysia was really easy to get around, easy to communicate with people. It was really unexpected for me, and it was a great introduction into Southeast Asia.
Right.
To be in a big city, Kuala Lumpur. We got our health care taken care of. Chris had, knee surgery. I mean, imagine going to a foreign country to do that and the kinds of things you might be worried about. But there were no issues. The doctors spoke great English. Everybody was very helpful and very kind. So
and in Singapore, English was readily spoken as well. When we got to Thailand and Vietnam, it wasn't as well spoken, but we still had no problem communicating. Being in the hospitality industry, most people had some sort of level of English. But by the time we actually got to Vietnam and Taiwan, we were learning how to pick up some language as we traveled. So we got, hello and thank you and you're welcome and how much and can I have the bill? So that helped. And because people were so friendly all up and down the peninsula, and we even went over to Borneo. Everybody was just so friendly, and as we opened up and we relaxed a little bit about our fears of speaking to people, I think people became friendlier as we
Yeah,
traveled
and I
along.
think that's one of the things, again, the fear of feeling like we don't belong or, wanting to fit in. Um, Really just enjoy the people. They really were very kind, very generous, and just felt right, really at home.
Yeah. I don't know
Maybe.
about at home or fitting in, but we certainly didn't feel like we were obtuse, right?
Yeah, we felt welcomed. I
Yeah,
think that's what
yeah,
I'm getting at.
yeah. So then I always have a fear about money and cash and visas and credit cards and so on and the currencies. I mean, when we got to Vietnam, we became millionaires because like $10 is a million Vietnamese dong or something. So like you have these giant currencies that you're dealing with, and then having to translate them all and convert them all and use the right currencies as you're making change and paying for things. It's like in Europe, you've got the euro, and euro is pretty parity with the US
Yeah.
dollar. So there's not a lot of math or any translations you need to do. But all up and down Southeast Asia, you're constantly trying to configure how much things
I'm
cost.
surprised how quickly I, caught on to it. Even like Japan now, it's like knock off two decimal places and take it down 25%, and that's the dollar equivalent. I know that probably doesn't make sense to the people who are watching, but for me, it makes sense that I can, look at, 10,000 yen, and it's like, I know right away that's $75.
Right, right. So, and we also found out that we we thought that being able to use our credit cards and our ATM cards would be really easy. It certainly was easy to use our ATM cards. We had no problems withdrawing cash anywhere. We did have problems several places with credit cards. Not that our credit cards didn't work. It's just that there's countries that their culture is cash currency versus credit card currency, and so there's just places that you just can't use your credit card. So Malaysia was like that. Thailand was somewhat like that.
Again, it
And
depends on
yeah,
where you're going. If
and
if you're going to the markets and you're going to get street food, you're not going to be able to use your credit card.
right.
But even a lot of restaurants, they were cash only that we
Mm-hmm.
expected. Well, maybe a credit card would work. So yeah, we
We use
spent a
that.
lot of cash
Yeah,
and less in credit cards than we were used to in Europe and other places.
right. And then also we. What about dressing or clothing?
Yeah, let's switch subjects a little bit. So it was hot. It was really hot. So, in the 90s in Fahrenheit and in the 30s
Mm-hmm.
in Celsius, and also really, really humid. So we didn't want to wear a lot of clothes, and we wanted to wear the
Well,
sandals and
we wore clothing. We didn't run around in our
wore
bikinis or
clothes.
anything,
But
but
one
yeah.
thing that we need a little bit be careful of because Malaysia is really a very conservative country. It's got a majority Muslim, and especially if we wanted to go to some of the historical places, some of the mosques or some of the temples where you needed to be more modestly dressed, and it was just a requirement. And so we tended to start dressing, with our knees covered, our shoulders covered. Tell more
And
about for
and I
you.
mean, for with Steve, the dress is a little bit easier for men, but for women, of course, when I went to temples and things, I had to make sure my knees were covered, and I didn't really want to buy a skirt because I don't have really use for a skirt at a lot of place. A skirt that covers my knees anywhere else really in my wardrobe. So I actually just used actually something my daughter got me in Brazil. It was a wrap, but I used the wrap. I could use it as a shoulder. I could use it for my as a skirt. I could use it to carry groceries with. I use it as a kind of something to sit on and like for a picnic. So it was just a very conservative burgundy color and was very functional and multi-purpose, so that I wasn't wasting any space in our carry-ons. Because as you guys know, we use carry-ons, and anything that's can only be used like once or twice is just not going to work in our wardrobe. So I was able to use this kind of free-flowing scarf-like thing in order to make sure I was properly dressed for the temples and the different conservative places that we need to go to.
Yeah, and then also just one more little tip in that shoes are never worn indoors. So even if you even
And at the dentist, we
went
didn't
to
even
the
get to wear
dentist
shoes.
office, they ask you to take your shoes off before you come in. So it just becomes you just as a habit before you enter any building or home, take your shoes off.
And if you don't have a pair of slippy, slidey shoes, there's thousands and thousands of pairs you can buy all over Southeast Asia. I actually found it funny that some of the brands that we know, like Keen, they actually sell some of the shoes that the models that you can buy in the U.S. They actually have backless versions here in Southeast Asia. So if you need to buy a pair of Keens without a back on them, you can here in Southeast Asia. So one of the other things that we have also struggled with is just making sure that we have friends and a social life. Well, what we found out is that among all the nomads and the full-time travelers, all of them are coming here to the Southeast Asia Trail during the winter time, and we had events and social life all over Southeast Asia. A lot of our friends came from the Go With Less group, but they also are friends of Eat, Walk, Learn, or people that we've just met online through Facebook and just reached out and made friends.
Yeah, it was actually really nice to have a nice social life, and there was also a lot of events. So when we were in Southeast Asia, of course, it was around the Christian holidays, which they celebrated. The malls were packed with all these Christmas decorations, and then New Year's we spent in Singapore, which was incredible. And then as soon as we got through New Year's, all of the Chinese New Year's decorations went up, and they were amazing. And Chinese New Year's was just so much fun to celebrate, and so many
And
people
then when we
were
got to Vietnam New Year's, which is different than
right.
Chinese New Year's. So it was just a celebration and a lot of festivities to participate in that were no charge and just
Yeah,
available to the
so
public.
it
So
was a great time of year
yeah.
to be here.
So, we started off the video with kind of talking about our fears. We had fear of kind of people, of language, of money, of some of the customs and things to wear, and how. Oh, what we didn't talk about is transit and getting around, and so transit is super affordable all over Southeast Asia, whether you're using public transit and taking the train or the bus or even the Uber equivalent, which is called Grab. Everything is very affordable. So, for example, a bus ride was never more than $1. And then most Grab rides to get across town in the rain, at peak hours was no more than $10, more like $5 or $6.
Right.
So just really affordable to use the local transit and transit options.
Yeah, and public transportation was just super easy in most
Readily available,
places.
yeah. Now, when it comes to airlines, this is so probably the number one question we get a lot about is the airlines here in Southeast Asia. So some of the brands are AirAsia, Batik, Bamboo, Firefly, a bunch of
Vietjet.
these cheap like Ryanair type airlines where you have to pay for everything. You got to pay for your seat and your luggage and your water, and I don't think we got charged to go to the bathroom, but it was starting to feel like we
We
might.
wanted to.
Yeah. So what we learned, as we've mentioned before, we carry 2 carry-on suitcases and 2 backpacks. So our carry-on suitcases weigh about 11 kilograms, so about 22 or 3
About
pounds.
25
Yeah.
pounds.
And then our backpacks weigh about 6 or 7 kilograms, so about 14 or 15 pounds. And most of the airlines around the world will allow you to bring that weight and those sizes on board as your carry-on. So your backpack is your personal item, and then you can bring 1 carry-on. Now, when you come into Southeast Asia, you're going to hit a pinch point, and that pinch point is you can only do 7 kilogram total
Total to
between
be
the 2
brought on.
pieces. So what we discovered as we were flying around Southeast Asia is that some of the airlines are really picky and some of them are not. Some of them
Yeah.
are going to weigh you right. It didn't, almost always we had to check in at the gate because we were on international flights and they wouldn't let you go to the kiosk and put in your passport and so on. So you had to actually
At the
talk to
ticket.
someone at the ticket counter,
Yeah.
even if you already had your boarding pass or you already checked in, but you couldn't get your boarding pass because you had to go through
Right.
some sort of immigration verification or something at the ticket counter. So even then, we would see if we could kind of get by with our 2 carry-on suitcases and our 2 backpacks.
You'd see us lurking around
And we
the
kind
you know the line just to
right.
see, well, what is that? What are other people doing?
And kind of checking out what was being verified and what was not. So we got to where we made the strategic decision that we were not going to prepay for a carry-on suitcase because it seemed that a lot of places they weren't weighing, they weren't checking. Just as long as you weren't, bringing in some sort of elephant or something into on board, you were fine. So most of the time, we did not pay for an extra carry-on bag. Now, when we got, so what our strategy became is we would make a game day decision. So when we got to the airport, we would go look at the line, we would check to see if they're weighing or not weighing and who was getting away with what. And then if it looked like we needed to pay for luggage, we would. So we'd either go online, if we still had time, we would go online and do it, or we would just get in line and pay the fees. Now, when you pay at the airport, it is more than if you prepay it when you book your ticket. But what we found, I think it was 5 out of 6 times we did not have to pay for luggage, and the 6th time we did. And if you do the math on that, we ended up being ahead of the game.
And it varies. It seems, we
Yeah.
talk to other people and they tell us, in their experience what happened. And then I even had, in Kuala Lumpur, I had one situation where they wouldn't let you get through the security line before weighing your bags,
Yeah.
and they were turning people away. And said, no, you didn't pay. You got to go back. But then we come back again the next time, and there's nobody
weren't doing
weighing
it, yeah.
anything, and nobody seemed to care. And depending on if you're flying international or flying domestic, I mean, or time of day, it just seems like there's so many variables. They all have the same policy, it seems.
Right.
It's the total 7 kilograms. They have big signs. But then,
They're not
are they
enforcing
really?
it.
Yeah,
they're
are they
enforcing
really?
it. But I
caring?
think the point we want to make is we didn't want to make flying in Southeast Asia be a pinch point for what we were going to pack. We were, because we're not willing to get down to 7 kilograms. I mean, we're down to 20 whatever, and that's everything we own in the world. We just didn't think we just don't feel like we need to get all the way down to 7 kilograms in order to be safe, in order to get on the airlines, and we're willing, if necessary, to pay for baggage if necessary.
And we know in your situation, you might have a carry-on or a check bag, and you have a check bag, and
Right.
you're going to check your bag, and you're going to pay for your check bag. So in this case, this whole conversation about what can you really get away with, carrying on, might be a moot point.
And
So,
that's more of a size issue than a weight issue. Like because
no,
I mean,
size doesn't matter.
size always matters, honey. What? Yeah, some of those bigger suitcases are not going to fit up ahead,
yeah.
but I mean, our carry-ons will always fit because they fit up ahead. So,
Size
anyway,
matters.
lots of. You got a dad joke for us,
We could just go into dad jokes.
please?
Yes. So there were these 2 guys golfing.
Oh God. You have to subscribe if you want to hear the rest of the 2 guys golfing joke. It's very cute. So anything else you want to talk about?
I think there was one more thing that I wanted to talk about. Oh, and generally just the affordability of everything. So we talked about, the low cost airlines and the transportation, but Southeast Asia is a great place to go if you want to save money. So your accommodations, your food, clothing, everything seems to cost less. And it's, I guess it's a factor again about, the exchange rate for the dollar. Because if you ask the locals, they tell you that everything was expensive.
Right,
So,
right.
but
Inflation is hitting them. But inflation
yeah.
hasn't hit us because we don't know what things cost before, so we don't know what things are costing now.
Yeah.
And the U.S. dollar has been so strong internationally, it's helping with inflation as we travel.
Right. And I think just things got less, it seemed more affordable. We used the term affordable. You went from Malaysia, and then we went to Thailand, and then went to Vietnam, which is really a great country.
Yeah, Vietnam is probably the most affordable of all 3 of them.
You can get, a banh mi,
For all 4 of them.
delicious sandwich for about $1.50, and the beer was cheap, and
Oh God, that vegan banh mi was 60 cents.
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was a good one. Yeah.
That was one of the best
Yeah,
sandwiches I had all over
it was
Southeast
so
Asia.
good. I was like, I'll have another one, and it's, just
We
kept
weren't even
eating.
finished with the first one. You're already ordering another one, and they were good, but you're like, it's only 60 cents, so I'm going to get another one.
Yeah. So I'm really excited. I know we're in Japan and we're heading back to the United States. Little, we got some good videos coming up about that decision. But I'm excited about coming back to Southeast Asia, and we're already talking about our plans for next winter
Yeah,
to
and there's
be in the heat
we
and
didn't make
humidity
it to
again.
Laos and we didn't make it to Cambodia or Indonesia. Be great if we get to Burma. We'll have to see how that turns out, or maybe even get to Brunei. So I mean, lots of places, and then we want to go back to northern Thailand. So lots of places we didn't even get a chance to get to.
Any recommendations that you have?
Yeah.
The countries that we didn't mention, even the places that we mentioned. We only went to a couple of cities in Vietnam, and I
So
want to
we
go
went
back.
to Kuala Lumpur, Malacca, Ipoh, Penang, Chiang Mai, Bangkok, Krabi, Koh Phi Phi, Da Nang, Hoi An, and Taipei.
That's
That's it.
basically
So
those are the cities we went to.
tell us all the places we missed that we need to get back to, all over Southeast Asia, even in the countries that we did and did not go to. So if you like this style of us just chit chatting away and hugging up and making dad jokes, give us a subscribe. We'll look at our analytics and see if you guys dropped off, and that will also tell us whether we failed on this one. But we would like to just kind of have an ongoing conversation with you, and this is the way that we can do it. Let us know. Also, we've got a couple videos coming up. We've got some medical care videos coming up. We're hiking in Japan, going to tell you about that, and we're going to tell you about our anxiety about coming back to the US. Talk to you soon. See you next week.